Why don't we chat about the Alder Lake soft launch here?
Hey.
Intel took the wraps off their 12th generation core lineup, codenamed Alder Lake. They are claiming a 19% increase in IPC over 11th gen. Built on the Intel 7, formerly known as 10 nanometer enhanced superfin process. No AVX 512. Turns out people didn't care on the mainstream platforms, and it took up too much die space. But we are getting PCI Express Gen 5. That's right, Luke. Gen 5. DDR5. 128 gigs max memory capacity. Dedicated B clock support. I don't know what dedicated B clock support means, but maybe that's just a typo in my notes here. One of the biggest things is new power definition. So I want to be careful about applauding this because it's the kind of thing that should have been done ages ago. But Intel is finally disclosing multiple power limits for their CPUs. So what was TDP, PL1, is now processor base power. Okay, so that's the power the CPU is able to access at any given moment. And what was PL2 is now maximum turbo power, or MTP, defined as the maximum power the CPU can access during boost. And in the past, for especially the last generation, Intel was releasing these CPUs with 100 plus watt TDPs that were regularly sucking back 200 watts or more. So I want to applaud the greater transparency, but you see how quiet the applause is because this should have never been a problem in the first place.
Still technically audible, thanks guys. But
and I mean,
not that much.
It's not just Intel. Like overall, whether we're talking about Apple with their intentionally vague performance graphs, or Intel with the things Intel does, there seems to be this trend towards de-technicalifying consumer-facing information that you publish. Like it used to be not that long ago that Intel would publish a complete matrix of all the different core counts and all the different boost clocks that the CPU could reach, and they just published it. And so you didn't have to guess, if I have like a two-core, a game that, utilizes predominantly two cores, what kind of performance will I see in that? What kind of clock speed will I see in that compared to if I have one that's going to manage to hit 4 or one that's limited to just 1? They used to just publish it and then they just stopped. And I remember complaining about it at the time. And then I guess I just got sort of slow boiled over here because I sort of forgot about it. And now that they're sort of giving me back an inch, I want a mile. I want all the proper specs back. Tell me everything.
Stop hiding.
Intel's performance testing claims that the new CPUs are at worst equal to and at best up to 30% faster than AMD's Ryzen 5000 series. However, speaking of Intel, publishing consumer-facing data that is questionable, Intel's testing used Windows 11 Pro and took place before the fixes for Windows 11 scheduler bugs that caused high level 3 cache latency on Ryzen. So how it actually performs is still unknown. Although what we do know is that it consistently beats 11th gen by at least that much. So it should be competitive based on what we know about how 12th gen compares to 11th gen and how 11th gen compares to Ryzen. But obviously, when we do our review, we're going to be laser focused on 12th gen versus Ryzen 5000 because that's what you guys want to know. Now, I don't know why Anthony put this in here, but I'm going to share it with you guys. Here are some facts about Alder Lake. Alder Lake is an artificial lake in Washington state created by the construction of the Alder Dam in 1944. Alders are trees comprising the genus Alnus in the birch family, Betulaceae. Alder is a hardwood that is useful for furniture and other structural use. The catkins can be edible. A catkin is found mainly on male plants and is a cluster of petalless flowers on a stem used for pollination. Alderwood is sometimes used for smoking fish, coffee, and other foods. And alder bark contains an anti-inflammatory and has been used by indigenous peoples to treat poison oak and other rashes for many, many years.
Nice.
Electric guitars have been made from alder since the 1950s, thanks to the tonal qualities the wood possesses.
Ah, yes.
Our discussion question is, will AMD's Vcache be enough? Or will AMD need to pull off some kind of different magic trick to stay ahead? Oh, man. I don't know. AMD has made some pretty bold claims about the kinds of performance increases that we can expect from Vcache, but really to me, the main discussion point for all of this is, are we back to Intel and AMD leapfrogging each other on a yearly or every other yearly basis? And is Intel finally going to be making the same kinds of investments that AMD has been making over the last few years to really drive performance forward, rather than just being content to sit back on their laurels? Are you excited?
Yeah. No, this is really good.
Okay.
This is really good. I think this is like stage 2 of the like resurgence of the CPU wars, because they were dead for a long time, and then AMD came out of nowhere and stole the crown, and then Intel just kind of sat around, and now they're both fighting, and that's good.
How would you respond to the people who inevitably are going to tweet at you upset about how much faster the new generation of CPUs is and how worthless their last generation CPU is when they turn around and try and sell it on the secondhand market?
They're lame. I don't care.
They're lame.
What do you mean?
Rude.
What do you
rude,
mean?
Rude.
Things should get faster. You can't just sit there and be salty about your thing not being as fast as the new thing. You should want progress, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but there's a whole generation of PC enthusiasts that thought that when you buy a 3770K,
you get to keep it for 10 years.
It basically holds its value for the better part of a decade.
I know people now that are playing modern games now on 3770 and 4790Ks.
Yeah.
They're fine.
They are still fine.
And honestly, this new one, even though there's the big jump, your previous one's going to be fine, dude. Like, it's just a thing. You're going to be all right. And don't stifle innovation.
Controversial
We want
take.
better stuff.
Controversial take. With so much of our gaming performance limited by the GPU, especially as 4K displays have become, 1440p got affordable first. Nowadays, like 1440p is like, you can find that on Craigslist for next to nothing. You want a 1440p display.
By the way.
It's a great resolution. Personal favorite resolution.
Me
Okay,
too.
if I had to have a personal favorite resolution. Okay. But 4K displays even are quite affordable now. And given how much of our performance bottleneck has actually been shifted to the GPU because we're trying to push so many pixels, do we need faster CPUs for gaming right now?
Might as well take them. You got to take them, dude.
Okay. Yeah, obviously it's better than a kick in the teeth, but that's not what I asked. Do we even need them?
Think not really for most use cases. I'm sure there's some game out there, someone's going to be able to find a game that like is really CPU bound.
Sure, like an esports title that's kind of capped around 250 FPS.
We've got 300 crank even higher.
We've got 360 hertz monitors out there now. You want to like really keep your frame times as low as possible, et cetera, et cetera.
So there's going to be use cases out there where like,
Sure.
yes, it's beneficial. I think the average user is not going to see a huge benefit between like this gen and previous gen, but I still wouldn't say that that's a reason to not care about the benefit. We got to crank this hardware, because like I think the people making the games be less scared to pump more things into it that could hamper performance if the performance of the computers are super cranked.
We all know that the performance of modern generation computers is not really the
It's consoles.
the issue.
Yeah.
It's all about how fast the modern generation of consoles is. And
But the better the tech gets on the desktop side, the next time a new console
That's true.
comes out, there's a higher chance that it's going to be better off.
That's true. That's
Should
true.
always want for more. That's how consumerism works.